How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the corner. I am the DM as always, and today I want to talk about Concord. Because this is a game that, in my opinion, never should have gotten made in the first place, and is probably going to lead to the closure of Firehawk Studios. So if you didn't know, Concord was a 5v5 multiplayer FPS similar to Overwatch 2, except with none of the charm, polish, or interesting character designs at all. And now, as you can see here, there's an important update on Concord from Firehawk Studios. But before I get to that, I want to come down here. And I just want to look at this. So 3 hours ago, and this is going to be important, right? So 2 hours ago, this comes up, but an hour before that, this came up, right? So they said that they're going to be conducting routine maintenance later at 9, right? So this was 3 hours from before now, but over here at Kotaku, you can see Concord shutting down. Not 14 days. It's like 11 days after launch. So this game didn't even make it a full 2 weeks before it was just shuttered by Sony. I guarantee you, Sony is the one that pulled the plug on this bitch. It wasn't Firehawk Studio or Firewalk Studios that decided to do this. This was definitely Sony saying, "Pull the plug. We're canceling this. We're no longer going to fund it." Um, so on September 6th, it is going to be shut down completely as the developers explore other options in the genre or in the space. So Concord was a game that was riddled with issues, starting just really from character design. The character designs, I'll even pull up some of the characters now. The character design in this game was just fucking awful. I mean, you got the Bastion from Wish, you got Winston from Wish, you got this lady. You got whatever the fuck this design is. You got this design. And it's just like none of these characters really look that cool. And I mean, look at just what the fuck is this design, right? Like what is this? What is this? What is this? Right? It's just really kind of just not, fucking annawish.com and at home. So like really it all started with the character design. The characters were just uninteresting, they were bland, they were very generic, kind of copy paste DI bullshit, really. Um and so Concord is going to be shuttered and just taken offline on the 6th, 3 days from now. So over here on the official PlayStation blog website, we have a message from Ryan Ellis, the game director. And it says, Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback, blah, blah, blah. And they're thanking everyone and everything. And then they go on to say that while the qualities of the experience resonated with players, no, it didn't. We also recognize other aspects of the game in our initial launch didn't land the way we intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6, 2024, and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. So talk about this from a like kind of game developer perspective. The Concord cost them about, I think it's estimated to be around $250 million. And if we look at the sales numbers, the sales metrics, it sold 25,000 units. That's it. Now, it doesn't take a mathematician to know that this isn't good, but if we multiply that by 60, so that means they made 1.5 million, right? Out of the like I think it was what 150, 250. I mean, it really doesn't fucking matter. Like, it didn't make any amount of dent. This was nothing more than a absolutely colossal flop. This flopped so hard that and it makes Anthem's run look like a fucking triple A masterpiece. So I want to pull up some Anthem statistics just for a quick comparison. All right, so I can't find specific development costs for Anthem, but right here we can see that Anthem sold. This was from PC Gamer back last year. Anthem sold 5 million copies, which sounds good until you compare it to Star Wars Battlefront. Now, Anthem was considered a colossal flop. It was considered so bad by pretty much everyone, and it was shuttered after I think like a month or something like that, like or not a month, after like a few months, right? I had expected Concord to at least last a month before it was shuttered. I didn't think it would last less than 2 weeks. But so right here we see Anthem sold 5 million copies, and that's about the highest estimate I could find for it. So if we just do that, Anthem alone doubled the cost that it took to create Concord. And Anthem was considered a colossal flop. But like compared to Concord now, Anthem looks like it's a fucking gym. Anthem looks. Concord failed so spectacularly that looking back on it, Anthem was honestly it genuinely was a really good game. By comparison, right? And it had a lot of potential, of course, but it's insane. Firewalk Studios. So the biggest reason why Firewalk Studios character design was the way it was, by and large, is more likely than not because they were trying to avoid any kind of lawsuit from Blizzard, right? Because Concord was a 5v5 FPS shooter that took place on small maps where you had objectives that are like take this thing from point A to point B and then all the way to point C. They had capture a flag, domination, standard FPS game modes, right? But they more than likely didn't want to encroach too closely towards copyright territory with Overwatch, right? And that's more likely than not part of the reason. Now, it's not the only reason, of course. DI incentives and whatnot are another reason why, right? That's why the character designs are all these very big, kind of chunky looking characters that don't really seem to resonate with the standard approach of the way the way developers design FPSs, first person shooters, right? So an example of this, right? If we just look at Overwatch 2 characters, right? And we go and just kind of look at this roster, right? Anna, she's this like old, grizzled war veteran woman, very old sniper. You have Ash, which is this very sleek and slender, very sexy looking character, but she's a bit of a badass from the Wild West. You got Bastion, who honestly looks really cool. You got Bridget, you got Diva, Doomfist, Genji, Hanzo. You have all these characters with very differing designs, but one thing you'll notice with all of them is none of them are like these big, like kind of chunky characters like there are with Concord, right? So if we look over at Concord again, right, and we just look at this, right, big chunky character. big chunky character, big chunky, big and chunky, right? You have all these characters that are big and chunky. Even this guy who looks pretty sleek, and he is, still has this kind of chunkiness to him in the upper chest region, right? You got this character, big and chunky, right? But then you go and you look at Overwatch, the only real big chunky characters are like Winston and Reinhardt. But you expect those kind of characters to be big and chunky. Even Bridget, who is kind of big and chunky, still has this like sleek, slender look to her, right? And then you go over here to this one, right? You got Lucio, Tracer, Genji, Mercy, and Mei, all very sleek, very slender. Even Mei, who is just naturally very kind of chunky, still has this like very sleek and slender design. If you go over to Call of Duty characters, right? Now, obviously, they have a lot of like collabs and whatnot, but if you look at just the standard operators, right? They all have this like sleek, slender design to them, which of course you would expect from like a military type shooter. But they also have this kind of chunkiness to them from the equipment that they have to wear, right? Um, and so you can also see from all of the collab characters. I'm going to pull them up as well. Um, uh, if I can type. Um, so if we go over here, right, and we look at the collab characters, right, all of them are these like kind of sleek and slender designs. They don't use anyone, they don't collab with anyone who they would have to make kind of like a chunky character, right? They had like Dr. Disrespect where they pulled him, etc., etc. You got this design, of course, from Girls Frontline with them. So you have all these characters who are just sleek and slender that some of them have like a chunkiness to them, but the chunkiness is one that you would expect, right? So even Concord, really, if we want to be a little generous, like the robot they have, right? It's got this chunkiness to them, but you wouldn't necessarily it's not unreasonable to think that a robot, especially one built for like fighting constantly, would have some chunkiness to them. But again, you look over at like Bastion, for example, and even Bastion, who is a robot who has some chunkiness to him, still has this like sleek and slender design, right? And so that's one reason why the character designs themselves don't really fit and don't really resonate with anyone, is because all their characters are kind of chunky, right? But besides that, the gameplay for Concord itself is just kind of bad, right? If you go and look at really any of the gameplay for this, right? And we just kind of skip forward ahead into this video where it'll actually show some gameplay, right? It's very slow, like even running, you're very slow. It doesn't really increase your speed at all. I mean, it does to a certain extent, but not really. And you can just look, and it's just there's no real feedback when you hit someone, right? So if you go to Overwatch and you go to like Reaper, right? And you're firing the guns, there's that satisfying like bang, 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 right? His arms recoil. When you look at like Soldier 76, you can see the gun sort of recoiling whenever you fire it. And right here, you can see this person's just walking around for something like a minute, minute and a half, and there's just nothing happening, right? And so, like right here, the guns don't have any weight to them. They don't feel weighty or anything like that. So the gameplay is just bad. It's not fun. It's very slow. If you go and look at, I'm just going to pull up Overwatch 2 gameplay. And you go and look at any kind of gameplay for
exciting times, of course.
Overwatch. Where do we go to mute this? Just skip right into the gameplay, right? And this is obviously some commentary, but you can see even just walking, like most characters don't have a sprint button. Soldier 76 is the only one that does. But even just observing it from like this perspective, right? Everyone is moving. Everyone's moving quickly, right? Even Reinhardt is moving probably at the same pace that you are in Concord when you are sprinting. And that's just at a fucking like casual walk, right? And so right here you can see Sombra running around at the fucking speed of sound, right? Pretty much. And she is running around, she's flanking, she's doing something. And at all times, and obviously this is like competitive Overwatch or whatever, but you can see that everyone is constantly moving and fighting, right? And that's just the objective of these kind of games is you're moving forward constantly, you're fighting the enemies, you're constantly getting into a brawl, right? Sometimes those brawls last a really long time, sometimes they don't, right? Um, but they're always moving, always brawling, right? And so this is why Overwatch 2, despite its flaws, is still vastly more successful than Concord. And it doesn't honestly even really matter about the fact that it's a Blizzard IP, that it's established, that there was an Overwatch 1. That doesn't really fucking matter. Even Overwatch 1, when it came onto the scene, fucking took off and soared. It was a brand new IP, right? That didn't have any pre-established characters. They've never done any kind of collabs with anyone, to put it like custom, like Doctor Disrespect or Emong characters or anything like that, right? They've never done anything like that. And so this is why this is why Concord failed so spectacularly. And bare minimum, I guarantee you, bare minimum, there's going to be double-digit employees fired from Firewalk Studios, and I keep calling Firewalk. But here's the thing: I would not be surprised in the slightest if Firewalk Studios is just shuttered altogether. They have cost Sony over $100 million. And that is no small. You got to remember, right? Tango Studios or whatever it was called, the ones that made Hi-Fi Rush, the game that was shadow dropped and fucking skyrocketed into fucking popularity. That became one of the single most profitable, one of the single most beloved games overnight. Okay, like the level of success that it garnered is on the level of like Dave the Diver, right? Dave the Diver is an indie game that came out. There wasn't really a whole lot of marketing, and that game just fucking exploded out of the gate and became one of the biggest indie games to launch, right? And so when Hi-Fi Rush was launched, that was the same thing. It really didn't get a lot of it. I'm pretty sure that game really didn't get any marketing at all, maybe a little bit, but it was shadow dropped and fucking exploded out of the gates and became one of the most successful new IP games ever launched, right? And Concord came out and or you know sorry, the game came out and Hi-Fi Rush came out and the studio was still shuttered. Like fucking wild. That game was so wildly successful and they still shuttered the studio. And I'm pretty sure it was Sony as well, right? So if Firewalk Studios isn't shuttered, I would be fucking flabbergasted as to why they weren't. Because it cost Sony over $100 million, and Hi-Fi Rush made them over $100 million, right? So Firewalk Studios almost certainly getting shuttered. Yeah. So, anyways, that's what I wanted to talk about because this is fucking wildly hilarious to me. And so yeah, so that's it. Firewalk Studios, Concord, fucking '07 to you. And yeah, so thank you all for coming to my corner. I've been the Deem as always. If you liked the video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. If you didn't like the video, hit the dislike button, leave a comment, let me know why. And I will see you all next time.